Let's just let everyone get a chance to join in. Those who have already had a chance to log in and they're comfortable, please go ahead and let us know where you're joining us from in the chat. We're eager to know where you're joining us from. Oh, I can see we have Sheila from New Jersey. Karibu. I hope it's not too cold out there. We know the weather is quite adverse right now, very cold. I hope you're warm. I can see Glenna has joined us from Nairobi. Thanks for joining us, Glenna. Karibu, Karibu. We have Edward, who has joined us from Kitengela, Kajiado County. Karibu, Karibu sana, all the way from Kajiado. Thanks for joining us. We have Caroline joining from Nairobi also. Thanks for joining us, Caroline. We're happy to have you here. Just give us a few minutes to let everybody come in before we hand over to our host, Pauline Kiraide, to kick off the session. This is a masterclass on personal branding. We want you guys to leave here knowing how to own your brand and own your career. Karibu, Karibu. We have Maureen telling us she's joining us from Nairobi. Thanks for joining, Maureen. Happy to have you here. We have Sarah from Nairobi also. Thanks for joining us. Paris from Nairobi, a warm welcome to the session. We have Rosemary saying good evening. She's joining from Nairobi. Karibu, Rosemary. We're happy to have you here. I can see a lot of familiar faces. Thanks for joining us. Former ascenders, HR professionals. Thanks for joining in. We're happy to have you here. We have Cynthia saying she's joining us from Nairobi. Karibu, Cynthia. Happy to have you here. Then finally, we have Marion saying she's joining us from Nairobi. As I was saying, this is a masterclass on personal branding, and you will leave here knowing how to own your brand and own your career. Our host is Pauline Kiraide, doctor, and on the panel we have Caroline Kendi, Rosalind Gishuru, and Eunice Ongele. We're really looking forward to the conversation.
So, Masha, I think we now have some quorum.
Yes, we do have quorum, almost at 50. So I think we can safely say that we can start, and then the rest will join in as they come into the room.
Okay. So you're ready? We can hand it over?
Yes.
Okay. So good evening. Good evening, everybody. Yeah, I would like you to just send us a wave. Yeah, if you don't want to put on your cameras, just wave or do a thumbs up. Yeah, send us our thumbs up to tell us you're here. I can see some familiar names now that I can't see the faces. Karibu sana Sheila Kibutu, lovely to see you here. Yeah, all the way from the US. Happy to see you. Yeah, I can see some familiar faces. Names. Karibuni sana. We're happy to host you. Yeah, and with me, I have a lovely panel of ladies. It wasn't intentional. Coincidence, we're all ladies. Yeah, but I guess most marketers actually are women. Majority, they'll tell us what percentage is for women, but I think they're like almost 90% women. But yes, many marketers are women, so I guess why the skew. But we are happy to have them here for a second time. And this was just due to the kind of feedback we got from the first session. Yeah, and we want to just continue this conversation, and especially because of the times that we are in. We're in the digital age. Yeah, and right now we are all online, and having a personal brand is not a nice to have, but a necessity. And for you to remain relevant in your career, we will have to learn how to build a personal brand. Yeah. So we had engaged you earlier before this webinar, and had asked a couple of questions. Yeah, we had run two polls, and the first poll was what best describes how visible you feel about your career right now. So we had given you options, and from the people who polled, 40% felt that they were doing good work but were being overlooked. Yeah, that was the majority. They felt that they are doing good work but are overlooked. So, which was the majority of the population of those who polled. And then we also asked you another question where we asked, which is your biggest challenge with personal branding today? And the majority of you also talked about not being clear about the value that you bring onto the table. And then there was also a challenge of communicating your impact. And so today's session, we're going to focus on practical ways of how to build a brand. Yeah, practical ways of how to build a personal brand. Yeah, so today I'll throw in a few examples of how it has helped my career. But today, since I have a panel, we're going to tap into the experience. Yeah, so I want us to start off with some introductions. And for me, I want to say that personal branding, to just start us off, is when your name is mentioned in the workplace or in your profession. What comes to people's mind? That's what I want you to have at the back of your mind. When your name is mentioned in the workplace, yeah, or in your profession, what comes to people's mind when they hear your name? So if they don't hear anything, just know your brand is non-existent. So you're the one who's going to be in charge of what you're going to curate about, what people are going to think about you. So you're the one who's going to curate what people think about you. Yeah. And for me, by the way, why personal branding? Let me just give you the backstory of why personal branding is important for me. So I spent a decade in media, and I remember in my second half of that decade, that is when I realized the importance of having a brand. So the good thing is that I'd always been on LinkedIn, and I had always been posting. So at least I was known in the industry, in my HR profession, and as well as in the media industry. But I remember there's a point where, especially being in leadership, there's a point where you'll be trolled. Yeah, it's synonymous. Leadership, trolling, they all kind of come together. So there's a point where the blogs used to write about me. But what saved me was because people knew me and they knew of my work. Yeah. And that's when I realized that if I did not have a brand in the market space, I think my career would have been killed at that point. Yeah, because you see, you can't be responding to every Tom, Dick, and Harry, everything they say. Yeah, you will not have time to respond to it. And for me, it made me realize the importance of having a brand. So if you are here and you have not built a brand, nature abhors a vacuum. So you will have to find a way to build your personal brand because it is your protection. It's actually like your insurance for your career going forward. But anyway, now let's hear from the experts. So for me, that's what made me realize if I had not built that brand, people would have had many versions of Pauline because the bloggers were writing about Pauline at that point. Yeah, because of the many changes we were making in the industry. So the key thing is ask yourself, what do people know about you? But people will only know about you if you tell them. But if you're not telling them anything about what you do, you have no brand. So we're gonna start, and so that's where I'll start us off. But I would want my panelists to come in, and I would like you to please start us off with your personal introduction and for you to give us your personal brand in quotable quote, the one you had shared with us earlier, and tell us why you felt it was important. So I will start with Rosalind, followed by Eunice, and then by Caroline Kendi.
Good evening. Good evening. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes.
Happy New Year. I think we still have time to say Happy New Year. Thank you, Pauline, for having us back. And it's great to see you, Candy and Eunice. We're together again, carrying on the most amazing conversation that began in December. So my name is Rosalind Gishuru, and I like to think of myself as having different expressions to who I am. But at my core, I like to believe that I am one. So my personal brand, my professional brand, and the person who steps into the different spheres of my life, I like to believe are one at the core. It's been a journey, I must say. It's taken time. I'm not so sure the journey was linear, but today I have the benefit of hindsight to really reflect on where I've come from and what are those moments in my life when I began to take a more deliberate focus on, on my brand and who I am. But I would like to believe that it started off with an inward looking, perspective and desiring for that inward person or brand to really show up outwardly. So that's sort of, how I think about, brand. In terms of who I am, I like to think of myself as a wholesome, purposeful woman, a mother, a wife, a leader, a coach, and a mentor. In terms of what I stand for, my whole being is anchored on what I like to call my 4 Ps. The first P is purpose. The second one is precision, which speaks to excellence and desiring to, to bring excellence in everything that I do. The third one would be passion, just always wanting to ignite positivity in everything I do. And then finally, and this is a new P in this decade of my life, and that's possibility. Pushing the envelope, just stepping out in courage, thinking twice about saying no first time around. Just try it. What's the worst that could happen? And yeah, what I've done, I have been largely a corporate leader called to the marketplace. I have held numerous leadership positions in the area of sort of brand custodianship, whether it's consumer, customer, trade, I've had the opportunity to serve on some of the best and most exciting global brands. The Gillette company, I worked on the Duracell batteries, Oral-B Braun, brands. I've worked for Coca-Cola. And then I made a significant shift into banking. I started off my banking career now in the region, locally and in the region. So started off with an IC, transitioned and really played an instrumental role in the formation of NCBA. And then today I serve at KCB. So that's a bit about who I am.
Thank you. Rosalind, and we are looking forward to learning from your great experience. Thank you. Eunice, you can go.
Yes, thank you, Pauline, Daktari. Because you're not going to be calling you. Well
Very
done.
fresh. It's still fresh.
Happy New Year to everyone. I am excited to be back here. Rosalind, Kendi, of course, happy to be with you again to see what we can be able to bring out this evening. So who is Eunice? So Eunice also has very different facets of her life. Rosalind has done it quite well until now. I'm thinking, ooh, but maybe go as I'd planned. So I am a founder and a lead consultant in a firm that I've just started. I started it last year and I'm growing it. And my passion basically lies in helping people and organizations design strategies that are both impactful and sustainable. So basically, I am a sales coach. So I train organization in the sales, from the beginning to the end. Personal branding. I'm a personal branding strategist. So I help individuals to bring out the best of themselves. I'm a leader and a mentor of many. So my motto and our quotable quote, as Pauline puts it, what I'd shared is your brand is your legacy in motion. So what does motion mean? It means that it keeps on evolving. So when I think of legacy, is what do you leave behind? So when you see your brand, when you see your career, what are those things that you've put in place that shapes you and you leave behind? And what do people say about you when you're not in that room? So that for me was the reason why I picked that motion. So why is that important for me? So this is important because branding is not about visibility only. So what else beyond you just being visible? You need to be able to influence people. You need to be able to be consistent. So your brand has to be very consistent in the different touch points that you have at home, at work. So it doesn't matter whether you are employed, self-employed, or a teacher, a student, it cuts across. And lastly, the emotional connection that you create with others. I am a student. I'm constantly a student. And right now I'm a student of John Maxwell teaching. So I'm being trained to be a certified coach and the Maxwell training leadership team. So there we are being taught about leadership and how we can be able to train others to have that clarity, the credibility and care that they can be able to bring out to the world. So when it comes to my professional background, I think it's important that I also need to bring it out. My background basically has been majorly on the commercial field. So I've been privileged to work in different capacities in sales, in customer experience, in business development, lastly, marketing and a bit of strategy. And that for me has made me have a bit of breadth, not a bit, a lot. So my range is quite large. And so with that experience that I've had, I've been able to draw now those diverse experiences to be able to grow individuals or organization that's seeking to grow their people. So it helps me connect the dots. So from a commercial space, from the start, marketing, your sales, your customer experience. When I train sales organization to go through that, I'm able to connect the dots because I've already experienced it. I am also networking. I love networking. I've been able to grow that space later in my year, and I think those are the experiences we need to share with people. How do you get yourself out there? And with that, I bravely joined Women on Boards Network. So I joined as a member a couple of years ago, and now I sit in the committee of membership and program committee, and I serve actually as the deputy chair of that committee. And I'm also an assessor. So I help them assess candidates for different awards that they normally do annually. So I've been training that area. I mentioned I'm a member of Maxwell Leadership Certified Team, and I derived a lot of my training from there. Lastly, I think this will share with you, I'm a member of Executive Connect. It's an area where we demystify leadership and humanize leadership. We learn a lot from there. Being a marketer, I'll not forget to say that I'm also in the Marketing Society of Kenya. Yes. So basically, briefly, that is me, and I think we'll uncover more as we go.
Thank you. A warning, these are marketers. Can we try to be brief, guys? I know you guys know how to market. So I'm about to go to Candy. Candy, be brief. Summarize. So Candy, over to you. Your intro. I can hear all
Thank
of
you
you.
for that. Because
You're all marketing yourselves.
no, also I'm saying thank you very much. Because also based on how they have introduced, I'm like, what? What do I say? So I'm very happy with the direction. I don't have any P's in my intro.
You're all Googleable. They are all Googleable. You're all Googleable. These people can get your profiles. So I want the snapshot review. Small. So, short intro. So that you get into the cracks of it. You have hung, Candy.
So you can see,
You've kind of hung.
can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
I'm hung.
Okay, yeah.
Can you
You're
hear me
okay now.
Are we good?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even the internet is telling me to make sure I keep it short.
Yes.
Great. My name is Caroline Kendi, and you can see Pauline is a good friend of mine, and she likes to bully me, even she's bullying me on this webinar. I am a brand building and marketing professional, 23 years now, across different industries. As Pauline said, I'm Googleable. But I think, when I think about how I would describe myself as a brand, and in the craft of brand building, we say the essence, right? Could you describe yourself in 3 words? I guess mine would be curious, very curious. And I guess that's how I have built a career in brand building and marketing, because curiosity around people, around what they need, and trying to see how you can solve for whatever those needs are. So a lot of curiosity. I'm very passionate. I'm the kind of person who can't do something that I don't care about. So I've also found myself working on businesses, brands, doing things just that's connect with me. And I guess in there, and I actually later on in life, but I think I would also describe myself as very purposeful and intentional, in the sense that meaning, right? I look for meaning. Actually, I'm currently repositioning my brand. So I've been about as a corporate leader, so working on brands. The last 2 years, repositioning my personal brand into being an entrepreneur. So I'm now a business coach, a business marketing coach. I help individuals, brands build or connect with their customers so that they can actually grow. Yeah, elevator pitch. So that's who I am. The quote, see, Pauline, I've done well. The quote I had, I think, was around saying, start with clarity, build with intention, and leave your brand. And why I like that quote is because I think, and I'll just echo what the ladies have said, I think number one, it starts with you. Yeah. And for me, one of my core things which are very important to me is authenticity, right? And the fundamentals or the foundation of a personal brand is it's you. The brand is your brand, right? So it has to be really you. So I really like the idea of starting with being clear about you. What is it? Who are you? What are you? And in the world of brand building, when you look at a brand, you look at what's great and what isn't great, because also it's not about being perfect, right? But being aware of the 360 picture of who you are as a brand. And then from there, starting to say, okay, who am I now? Who do I want to be and where do I want to go? And with that clarity and that intention, then it really influences how you think, what you do, and then that will link to then the value that you add. So what I like about that quote is it's really about the authenticity of it. Yeah, being authentic and really going and being true to who you are. And then being intentional, and true means you're not perfect, right? So also it's a journey, it's not a destination. And even if people say, oh, every brand and everybody, we're all on this journey of improving and growing every day. So how well do you understand where you are in your journey? And then saying, okay, so how can I be intentional, still staying very true to who I am in actually building and going to where I need to be? And then therefore now you live. So for me, it's really about being alive, yeah, being free, and then therefore whatever you're doing is actually coming from a very authentic space and a very good space. And I think for me, that's where joy is, that's where significance is.
Thank you.
I'm done.
Thank you for
I'm
that,
done.
for those introductions, ladies. So I hope people are listening in. You now feel you're in the right hands. So let's dig in. So as I started out, I told you what motivated me to realize the importance of what a personal brand is. Yeah. And how I said that nature abhors a vacuum. So I just quickly would want to know what has been your own personal journey of building your own brand. Yeah, before we get into the nitty-gritties. Yeah. So Rosalind, you can start us off. Tell us how practically you have built your own personal brand.
Yeah. So I think honestly, as mentioned, it's been a journey. And it is one I didn't even know I was on. Personal branding way back when was not necessarily a thing, if I may say that. We were working in organizations, building brands, but that spotlight back on yourself was not really something I remember in my early days of my career. I think it only was until about 15 years ago or so, as I was approaching, these milestone birthdays. That's when you begin to introspect and really say, who am I? Where am I going? And what am I doing on this earth anyway? Why was I created? What is the impact I want to leave? What is my legacy? So honestly, it came with, there's almost a convergence between the realization that, we're getting older and we need to stand for something. So it wasn't linear. I just sensed that there is more. And I then began to really, search out my purpose. And in so doing, I would say that my journey has been characterized since the last 15 years in 3 phases. In my search for purpose and answering the question why I exist and the impact I want to leave, I think for me, it is where I began to define my identity. Because who am I? So there are many different ways that I sought to get that clarity. One is, just reflecting on who you are, maybe the things you used to love doing, the things that people tell you about yourself, the things that you don't particularly enjoy. So you just have to search out who you are to really establish your identity, because it is from your identity that you begin to then build trust. You begin to live more consistently in a way that is comfortable with the person you have defined your identity to be. And it's where then you build a reputation because you're consistent and very authentic. As Kendi said, your real person is your identity, and you live out your life across all spheres in that manner. So you build your reputation that way. And then finally, you establish emotional bonds. So there's something about that building trust once you know your identity. And then finally, I would say the last few years has been a period of growth. You don't arrive with your brand. You're constantly evolving. Every season calls for a better a different, person. So this season of growing is just, it's been about evolving and allowing yourself and being comfortable with yourself to evolve. But I think one thing that stays true is who you are at your core. And that was established, that 15 years ago or so. Of course, I've refined it, but I think at the core. And yeah, so it's just, that has been, in a nutshell, my journey of brand building. Yeah.
Fantastic. So can I assume that process is the same kind of process that you use when you're building a brand for like a product?
I
Are
didn't
they
think
similar?
so initially, but on reflection, even when I do masterclasses on personal brand, I draw from my own experiences building brands. But initially, I didn't think there was a correlation because, again, it wasn't a thing. But there's so much that we can draw from building external brands and apply to yourself. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. So I would like Kendi. Maybe Kendi, you can go next. Share with us your journey of how you've built your brand in the marketplace.
So I think I agree with Rosalind. When we started our careers, this idea of personal branding didn't exist really. And I guess maybe it's also because LinkedIn didn't exist. So there wasn't any channels and spaces for you to position yourself, right, as they are today. So if I think of that journey though, and I think back to, and I'm talking about LinkedIn because LinkedIn is an amplification channel, but it is not what personal branding is. And that's probably the first myth to bust, is that it starts from where you are in your space. And I guess in my space, when I started my career, I didn't, I was typically, those people who was happy to have a job, and I had a salary at the end of the day, and I was like, yes, and I'm grateful because I stumbled upon, a program. So I started at Unilever as a management trainee, and the beauty of those kind of programs is you do a lot of leadership. They start prepping you to be leaders. So a lot of introspection, a lot of leadership development, a lot of exposure. And whatever they did, and then I found myself in commercial, right? And I found myself in commercial in the marketing space, in the brand building marketing space. And again, in hindsight, when I reflect upon it, some things still remain true, right? That time I thought I was quite curious, right? So I think when I started working on Blue Band, those days, and it was interesting to just, we used to go and spend times in consumers' houses, do immersions, and that thing of curiosity started. So I was very curious at that time and trying to understand, okay, why does this person buy and this one doesn't buy, and what is the difference and things like that. So I think the point I'm trying to make here is even when you look at yourself and when you're trying to think about what your personal brand is, if you look at, you'll find there are some things which are similar and which stay consistent throughout. So so a lot of it was just literally understanding myself and doing stuff that I'm passionate about, that I'm, who I am. And then within there's joy. And when you do that, then I was able to work harder. I was able to put effort because I enjoyed what I did. And I was able to excel. So again, once you find that space, then you're able to excel. So I used to spend a lot of time looking at data, understanding insights, understanding why people do what, and then therefore eventually that showed up in my work. Yeah. And then therefore I now created this, I guess, personal brand of, if you give it to Kendi, it will be done well, and it will be done thoroughly with the fundamentals in place. And that's how I kind of navigated. Another interesting thing about my career and my personal brand is I'm the kind of person who used to do the hard things. I guess even till now, I'm just doing hard things. Even being an entrepreneur, I'm like, let me go and do hard things, but not being bold, right? And not being afraid. I remember when I when I left Unilever, when I started Unilever, the first thing we were given was a pickup and sent to Western and told, find your way and go and sell. I was like, okay, and I went and I just figured it out. It was hard, right? And it was crazy. And that's another whole masterclass. But doing that, when I was leaving Unilever and going to Tasca that time and going to EABL, and I went as a brand manager for Tasca, Tasca was the hardest. It was before telcos, so it was the biggest brand, and that time we were doing many things. It was hard. I remember the chick was handing over to me, told me, "This is a hard job. You're going to suffer." And I mean, I suffered, but in the suffering, I grew. I suffered, indeed, I suffered. But then it was fun, and also, at that time, my life stage was, people ask me what I did, I tell them, I throw parties for a living. How is that? A hard job, But it was tough, and that's what I'm saying, this consistency. When I went and I moved to South Africa, I had a small baby, I was doing a traveling job, it was tough. So there's something about just also being able to in my journey, which is about being bold, right? And figuring it out when you're there. That I can say has been my journey. And then LinkedIn happened, right? And now these channels, the digital revolution happened. And I remember I used to do, I mean, I was busy doing, right? And doing, but I never used to people. I remember when I now went to Safaricom, so when I came back and I went to Safaricom, a lot of people would be like, "Oh, come and do this speaking engagement." And I'd be like, "No, why?" And during COVID actually was when I got my aha moment, with regards to that. And a friend of mine asked me to do a masterclass like this for his staff. And he was just like, look, your staff, whatever your brand building, all this, the craft, how about you just sit and get my team to understand and just see how the principles work? Okay. And initially, I thought, and this is usually the biggest barrier when it comes to brand building, is people think that when you're positioning yourself and you're packaging yourself and putting yourself out there, it's selfish, right? It's like chest thumping, and that's why I wouldn't do it. I guess I'm just, Proverbs 31 woman. But I think what happened when I did it the first time is when I realized it actually is it's sharing, it's giving, and empowers other people. So that's when I actually and I did the first time, and then I did it again, and I realized, okay, actually, this is something which I'm doing in my life, and I'm doing for just to show my value in the spaces that I am. But there's a way that I can position myself and actually enable and help other people to do the same. And that's when I started getting intentional now about, okay, so what am I passionate about? So my journey, and especially in the last maybe 5 years, is really about saying, okay, what am I about, right? So on LinkedIn, and only, my core platform was LinkedIn. And I'd be like, 3 things. What am I passionate about? I'm excited about digital and all digital that's doing in marketing. So I'll do that. I'd post about my work and projects that I'm working on. And then I'll just post about interest out. And that's it, right? I put that out there. It was authentic. Yeah, it was genuinely who I am and what I was thinking about. I put it out there. And before long, I was being called by people like Pauline to do a masterclass like this. So I think what I want to leave you with is that it's not it doesn't. A lot of people associate. And I remember when I started my career, it would be like that. It's about visibility. Show yourself, and that feels to most of us inauthentic, right? And I feel like that's it. There's a risk there in looking at it and just looking at it at the surface. So I always say under the iceberg, it has to be very authentic. And as long as you think about it from genuinely who you are, what you're passionate about, and you see it as a channel to help other people. It's about impact, it's about helping other people. It's about sharing what you know. Then it becomes easier, and it actually gives you energy as you're giving other people energy. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, and there's this common phrase where they say, if you want to become an expert in your field, it's one thing. It's one thing to know what you know, but it's more guaranteed, and it's a better thing when you share the thing that you know. Yeah, and it's even better when you can even teach it. That's now even the 3rd level. Yeah, so when you start by sharing what you already know, and as you're empowering other people, you will get more satisfaction, with the thing that you already know. And now take it a notch higher. When you teach, it even gets better. You now become an expert in the thing that you're doing. Thank you very much, Kendi, for that. And then Eunice, maybe you can tell us your journey of how you have built your brand so far.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, ladies, also for your insights. And I like, I think some of these things, maybe you're in the same age group or bracket, the things are almost similar. And I love the bit of the seasonality. There are different seasons for different things. So for me, I think my environment initially really influenced my personal branding, and environment being at the formative stage when we are growing up and you're seeing your parents, how they do this career thing or the job thing, but then we're not very clear. But I remember my father would constantly tell us that you need to always try and relate upwards. Relating upwards meaning people who are doing things that you can only dream about. When you do that, you're able to expose yourself to these people and see how they're doing things. And with that, you can see the ease of how things can be done. So for him, that is how he grew. So his legacy for me was very, very, it was a living legacy that I saw growing, and he moved from one role to another. Same to my mother, although she left a career a bit earlier, but how she used to position herself. And this one, hers was more of the outward look. And I remember saying this last time. Oh, she was very stylish and still is up to now in her old age. There's some things that she cannot wear, and there's some things that, you know, she's just that. And I didn't know that was also forming how I would also reason as I grew. And the only thing that took so long to be amplified is the intentionality of it. In as much as my parents used to encourage me, go, but some things you still second guess yourself. But like we said, seasonality, we change and we are always growing. And there comes a stage in a girl's life, I can only say a girl's life because that's what I know, that there is a moment, like you take a step backwards and start looking at yourself like, okay, I have reached this stage. What have I achieved? What else is remaining? How do I now use what I have to get to that place that I want to be? So retrospecting and taking stock of what you have and looking ahead. And one of the things that I thought, and I think this will also encourage people, is the power of networking. I did not do that very well, in as much as my father really, really rammed that on us. I second guessed myself for many years. But when I started going out, the outwardness came out. I'm an introvert, extrovert. I can be on my own, but I've learned how to be an extrovert in terms of where I need to come out, I come out. And that I've seen has helped me in the later year when it comes to the career. And it has made me move in some rooms that surely I didn't think I would get into. And I'll also give a small example when it comes to just how personal branding can be very, very key, especially when it comes to leadership. Earlier on in my career, there was a time there was a change in leadership, and I got a new boss. And then I was in the sales department. And what we needed to do is to go and introduce our new boss to our customers. So your customer knows who you are by how you present yourself, how you take care of them, and all that, all those things. So when you got there, I'd given her uh, the facts of the customer. And I think for some reason she did not read, and no, she didn't get the gist of who the customer was. It was a high level meeting. So when we got to the meeting room, she came late. She was dressed very casually, and this customer, know your customer. There are those people who dress a certain way. And so already they formed an opinion about her. So from that meeting, I also started thinking of, who am I in all this thing? How do I ensure that I don't become that? But it was also a lesson for her, because the next meeting when we went, she came out of the box, because the first meeting she was ignored the whole time. And I kept on putting the customer back to her, like, you see, Nani, da 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 da, and they were all giving her time. And when we came out of the meeting, I thought my job is over, because now I've outshined the boss. So such kind of things made me now, in retrospect, to just look at who is Eunice. And I love it that as we grow and we become mature, for lack of a better word, in this field of just knowing yourself, we get to a level where now you want to give back. And Kendi, I think you brought that out. Yeah. Kendi, you brought that out very well, that now it's an opportunity to now give back, train other people, and the people who are making mistakes behind you, help them in building that muscle that perhaps they don't have. So when I see people struggling, I find myself getting into that space. And if they allow me, I'm able to now help them navigate around that. So I've been lucky also to work for very big brands. I've worked for Total for many, many years, very big in their brand image and identity, and how I presented myself. But that also shaped me in terms of how I present myself as a professional. And I was also lucky to get into another international organization, which is Bosch. Again, different way of looking at things, a bit chilled when it comes to the visibility on how you position yourself. But again, how do you interact with people from different levels? So I've been lucky, I can say so, but it has taken time. It was not something that I knew, but here we are. And thank you, Pauline, for also bringing us here to share.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Eunice, for that. Yeah. So remember, I also mentioned at the beginning that we had done a poll and people had mentioned that they are doing good work, but they feel that they are always overlooked. Yeah. And I remember when I started my journey of personal brand, not even personal brand, personal branding, I literally had to sit myself down for a meeting. Yeah. I called myself into a meeting. Yeah, because I was in media for a decade. Remember, I told you I was in media for a decade. But guess what? In those 10 years, I'd never appeared in front of a camera. Can you imagine? Anytime they would ask for an opinion, I tell them, look for somebody else. Yeah. So I was in media, but I was not at the front of the camera. Yeah. But the other thing that I realized, also having been in media, especially recruiting the anchors, like in Jeff Koinange and the other anchors, I remember very stark difference because we would hire people all doing the same job, but they would all be earning very differently. And so for me, it took me into the journey of trying to understand why Jeff would earn 3 times his peers, 3 times more his peers, while they're doing the same job. Yeah, and so for me, it actually took me into a journey to understand why is this person more valued than the other. So just to take us back to the key question of our audience today, they are doing very good work, but being overlooked. That was me. Those 10 years ago. Yeah, not even 10 years ago, much earlier. But those 10 years when I was in media, I was a very good worker, very hard worker, key talent for organizations, but I was not being seen. So I called myself into a meeting. And so these are the things I want us to talk about. How do you start articulating your value practically in the marketplace? If people don't know what you bring onto the table, guys, I can tell you, you are going to remain a statistic. Yeah, you're just going to be that employee number. Yeah, who earns this amount. Yeah, and unfortunately, you'll be processed like any other person. So how do you differentiate yourself? Yeah, how do you differentiate yourself from the pack? And so I want to start off with Kaki. So I want us to now get very practical. Yeah, so Kaki, I want you to just tell us briefly, how does one know their value and how do they articulate it practically in the marketplace? Yeah.
Honestly, great question, Pauline. And I think many of us can think of moments in our career where we had to come to the realization like you did. And the truth is, most people cannot demonstrate or articulate the value they bring to the organization. And some of the mistakes or maybe the opportunities that I reflected on was, number one, it's not about the activities you engage in. It is the outcomes. We're brand custodians, brand building, enthusiasts, and there's a lot of activities. You can be juggling this, that, the other, but you forget what matters most in terms of the value you bring to the table of your organization is the outcomes. And those outcomes must be measurable. Are you bringing financial value? Is it the number of sales? Have you helped the organization make more money? And even operational value. How have you improved the way things are done within the organization? It could also be human or cultural value. What improvements have you made in building out the culture, or, improvements around people are concerned? And for us within the marketing space, we also have our metrics, your brand value, your brand power score, the brand affinity, brand awareness, and then also customer satisfaction. So I think it's not about activity, it's about outcome. And those outcomes have to be measurable. And you have to understand the value of your outcomes, and you have to be able to articulate them at the table. I also think that it's very, very important for us to review our track record. 2025 is behind us. What did you accomplish? What projects did you engage in? What were the results? And preferably with some financial, operational, something, customer satisfaction. That's the language that is so important for us to be able to speak at the table. And that is what gives you that brand awareness that you need. You may be media shy, for example, or maybe not ready to go on LinkedIn and, share your thoughts. But guess what? If there's one thing that will not be forgotten, is the tangible outcomes that you bring to the organization. That in and of itself will create that brand awareness that you need. And then brand experience, as you're going about doing your work. How do people experience you? Do you leave them feeling better? Do you uplift them? How do you show up? And these are very, very crucial questions and discussions that happened in closed doors when we are evaluating talent. And I'm not an HR person, just a people leader. But Pauline, you know that, when we're looking at talent, how people experience you is key. So if they experience you positively, and you just leave a positive impression as you deliver those outcomes, not activities, outcomes, I think the final thing that always works in your favor is brand advocacy. And honestly, this is when people speak on your behalf in rooms that you're not. You're sitting in a moderation. I think we're all going through moderations. We're reviewing 2025. We're closing up on balanced scorecards. You are being discussed. So what will people say when you're not in the room? So I think for me, if we focus on outcomes as a starting point, as we build confidence to now speak and go on LinkedIn and all these things, let's first bring the value of the outcomes to the table. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you. Yes, those are very good pointers on how to articulate your value. Yeah, and so don't do the hard work and then keep quiet about what you have done. Yeah, guys, I know we were taught to be humble. Yeah, and I think that's what messed a couple of us along the way. Yeah, because we believe that our work should speak for itself. Well, work doesn't speak. So we'll have to learn how to articulate the value that we bring onto the table. Yeah, and so there are opportunities where you can be able to cleverly articulate your value, yeah, based on what Rosalind has shared. Yeah, and so I want to ask you this. Tell us practically, how can somebody communicate their value practically in the workspace? How do you practically, yeah, without rubbing people the wrong way, yeah, how do you articulate your value?
Okay. And I'll just pick up from where Rosalind had left it when it comes to the track, your track, and how that needs to show up. So as she mentioned, it's not about the activities only, but the outcome of that activity. So how do you articulate? So you need to be quite aware of what the outcome is. Yeah. And when you're aware of what the outcome is, and I'm sure every organization or even you as an individual, the KPIs that you give yourself, that by this and this time I should have done whatever that is. And so you need to also constantly measure, am I getting there? and now have a story around it. That would be the next thing. Have a story around it. How do you now say your story after you've brought out the outcome? So how do you coin that outcome in such a way that you're able to communicate it effectively so that whatever the target audience is, be it your boss, be it your client, be it whatever, is able to get it and internalize it and get the insight that you're trying to bring out. So you have to be very, very clear on how that storytelling is looking like. So connect the dots for your target audience. Align with the goals of the organization if you're employed, or your vision, basically. You need to really tie the activities that you're doing with the goals of the organization, so that you're not all over the space. When you do that, you are able to come up with clear plans of how to achieve the goals, so the vision of the organization. If you're not very clear about it, I think most organizations normally have town halls or meetings where one can be able to ask, where are we going? Where do I bring value in this? And from there, you can now coin how your storytelling will be around that area. I'm talking about storytelling because communication is basically bringing the invisible to be visible. Because when you're sitting in the corner office or the corner somewhere and you're not saying what you're doing, sometimes you could be busy doing, but nobody knows what you're doing. Remember that book about the good girls who don't get the corner office? Same thing. So align your goals with that so that you're not also beating all over the space. You're very sure of where the strategic direction is. The other thing that I find quite impactful is seeking and sharing feedback. When you seek feedback, is asking people about you. So again, that is where sometimes when you don't know who you are, sometimes you can start from there by asking your colleagues, your peers, your bosses, when I do this, how do you see me? Where do you place me? Find a way of asking that question so that you're able to know what you're doing. In one of the organizations that I worked for, and I totally love this, I think I said it in the last forum, we would have something called your fix. So it's every month you'd have an opportunity to meet with your boss, and also the people who report into you for maybe half an hour, depending on how your organization is. And it's a meeting of just knowing each other. It could be the KPIs you're discussing, or it's just an open agenda whereby we are able to have a safe space to share feedback and also get feedback. So that's an opportunity for you also to tell your boss, I don't like this, or clarify for me in case you're not very clear. So I believe in seeking and sharing feedback, and invest on visibility. Surely you need, I know Candy said visibility, but she'll tell us more about that. But I believe in investing in visibility because some of us, someone said that they're doing the work, but they're being overlooked. Sometimes perhaps you're not very visible. So for me, is be present in the meetings. I know one of the organizations that I ever worked for, we were not allowed to get in the meetings with our cell phones and our laptops, especially if it was just a pitch where we needed to just think and brainstorm, because those gadgets normally would be a distraction. So basically, to help us really to tackle whatever we need to do, if it's half an hour and it's very impactful. So when you're in these meetings, be present. Raise your hands, talk, let people know what you're all about. If you're a good writer, if you're a journalist and you're a good writer and you know how to articulate, sometimes write, share them to the world. And that's how, again, you get to be visible. LinkedIn and those other social media platform allows us to be ourselves in different areas. Also network. Go out there, network, and see how people do things. And from there, you can know how to position yourself and communicate. Because when you stay, or remember I told you earlier, would be encouraged to network upwards. That way you're able to see these people, how do they behave? Then you can now borrow from that. Of course, sharing your values, you know what your values are, not copy pasting, but what really is core for you. So that is some of the communication tools I would use, basically.
Thank you, Eunice. Yeah. So I'm sure you have had the very many ways that you can start articulating your value in the market space. So I want to just close off this first session before we start taking a few questions from the group. So Kendi, how do we, as an individual, not an organization, how would you build a profitable personal brand? Yeah, how do you start building a profitable personal brand? Yeah, so maybe just give us highlights, just highlights of how somebody would practically do it. Yeah, right now, maybe from employment, take it from employment all the way to as you move into entrepreneurship.
Fantastic. That's a really cool question. And I think when you think of profitable, right, it's really about, in an organization, you think about maximizing revenue at the lowest costs, right? So I guess when you're thinking about it as a personal brand, it's about maximizing the value at the least amount of cost. And when I reflect upon what that looks like, if you're in your career, it's really about, addressing this concern people have raised about how you're making sure you're not overlooked. You're getting the promotions when there's a roll up, you're the one who's getting promoted, because of who you are as a personal brand. And then I guess as an entrepreneur, it's how are you able to position yourself in a way that people trust you to give you their business. And I think I look a couple of examples. I'll say when I was in my career, I remember at some point when I left, when I wanted to leave EABL because I had a small baby, and now this lifestyle of throwing parties wasn't working. I think it's a really good example of how my personal brand, because when I left, so I used to work at Unilever, and then I went to EABL, Diageo, and then I went back to Unilever, right? And I think it's an important point to talk about that thing of your work and who you are speaking for you. Because when I went to EABL, Unilever came back and they came and said, hey, are you open? And that was a testament to my personal brand and what I had done, right? And how I had shown up then. And remember that time I was like, yeah, yeah, but what's the offer, right? And that's what I'm talking about profitability, because at that point, first I was very clear about why I left, right? And why I left was really because that time I was leaving Unilever to go do Tasker, so it was a bigger role. It was, and that experience is what they wanted me to come back and bring into the business. So when you think about value, I mean, you have to think about it from that to say, what is it that how well do I understand what you need, right? As an organization or as a stakeholder, because if you're within an organization, and you have to understand, in order for me to move from here, point A to point B, right? There has to be something that person is looking for and they need. And then you have to be intentional in positioning yourself for that, for the value to come to you. Yeah. So it's a value exchange. It's always a value exchange. And I remember when I was talking to them that time, the CEO at that point and the marketing director at that point in Kenya refused to interview me. They were like, we know, if we are lucky if we get her. So the guy who was interviewing me was based in Dubai, and he told me, who are you? And how has everyone refused to interview you? Right? Again, so that's a testament. And then by the time I was able to negotiate and whatever, that's how I got profitable. So I think the lesson and the learning from that is be intentional about what is the value exchange, right? Nobody's gonna give you a promotion because you've worked for many years. No one is gonna give you, it's what value are you bringing, tangible, what I think Rosalind talked about earlier, what tangible value are you able to give? And then therefore that is the value that they'll be able to return back to you. And as long as you're in that space of value exchange, I do believe you'll always have a profitable personal brand. And the same thing when it comes to entrepreneurship, when you have a solution for your clients and what you're doing, how you show up. Another very important tool that I learned in my career was building a stakeholder map, right? And when you talk about brand building, it's really about going back to understand what your customer needs. So in a world, in an office, and when you're talking about your career, the different stakeholders who will influence. We always talk about this thing of sponsorship and who are the people, what are they talking about you when you're not in the room, right? And if you understand that, and okay, promotions, who are the key people who will speak to who will promote me, right? And promote, I mean, who will say good things about me when it's time for the promotion to happen. The stakeholders, HR, is there. Okay. The CEO is probably important. Your line manager is everything. I always tell people career is like the casino. The line manager always wins. So you make sure your line manager, you're very clear about what they need and any other stakeholders. Once you map out your stakeholders and then be clear in the context of the business, right? So again, it's not going to find out what do they like and, in there. No, it's within this context where I am required to add value. What is it that the CEO is looking for? And what is important to him? And then you align yourself to that. One of the big things I used to do, especially when it comes to when you want to now move to leadership level, is really it can't be just about the craft and the work that you do. Yeah, you have to start demonstrating leadership. So what are the things you're going to do over and above doing the work that show that you're ready for the next role, in your current role? Most of the time, somebody gave me really good advice once upon a time, and they told me, in your current role, if you want to be promoted to marketing director or marketing manager or whatever, wake up every day like you're the marketing director of this company. And make decisions like you're the marketing director. Show up but what it means is you're able to position yourself and make decisions, right? So even when you're going to your line manager, options is my recommendation. What do you think? Because when you're sitting there, you've already thought about how would she be thinking? So what happens is then, because you're positioning yourself, then it's an obvious value exchange. When that decision is being made about, who do you think is ready for the role? You're likely to be the one who's chosen. So I think it's really, in summary, it's about really thinking about maximizing your value. So understanding what value means and what the value exchange is. And then with each stakeholder, be intentional. Back to what I said earlier, it's about being intentional. I like, if it's a CFO, every time you show up in front of the CFO, talk CFO language, right? Talk about money. Don't go and start telling him in marketing in our world, if you go and start telling the CFO about feelings, your budgets will never be approved. So go with that person and speak to them, understanding their language. If it's your line manager, you understand exactly what their vision is for the department and what they're doing. So speak to that and be that person who's enabling that. And what happens in that process is then that's for me what I understand about what value maximization is. And then what happens is then you elevate your value, and then therefore you have negotiating power. And then the power, and I'll tell you my career as an example, is when you do that, it's not only restricted to that organization. Other people will see you and they'll call you. And at the end of the day, again, good advice somebody told me, they said, sometimes that's how you grow. Sometimes you grow by, moving out. So again, when you're doing it, you're not doing it. Sometimes people are like, oh, but these people here will never appreciate it, so I won't bother. But as long as you're investing in yourself and you're investing on the value that you're bringing, right? I truly, truly believe then that value will be realized. And at the end of the day, somebody will reward and exchange that value with you.
I had also added the aspect of, as you transition also to entrepreneurship, because we will not be working forever. So as you have built that brand within the organization, you need to be able to move with it now into the marketplace. So even as you move into the marketplace, people will buy you based on the brand that you had in the marketplace. So being able to transition now into consulting and to start your own organization will still rely on the original brand that you had within the organization. And so if you have not built a good brand while you are working, I can guarantee you, even if you start that organization, people will still treat you the same way they treated you. So the thing is, start building your brand. I always tell people, actually, build your brand on other people's resources. So when you're working for an organization, that's other people's resources. So you have the networks, you have the title. You can be able to build the brand much easier within an organization. When you get out of employment, you don't want to start building the brand then, because now it will be much harder for you. It will be more costlier for you. So to transition now makes it harder. And so if you have built a good brand while you are working, you have that positioning, the visibility, it will even now make it easier for people to transition now into your business and still buy whatever you're selling. Yeah, so a good name, as the Bible says, yeah, is a very important thing. Yeah, it's more important, yeah, if there's such a word, than money. Yeah, so you build the name first, the brand. And so maybe at this point, Marsha, I'll ask you, are there any questions for us? I just give each of the panelists one question, and then we can do the last lap.
Yes, we do have questions. I think I'll start with Rosalind, and I'll give her the question from Maureen Derito that says, has any of you experienced imposter syndrome? If yes, how have you dealt with that? I don't know if we should just go around, Pauline, on that one.
No, just one person.
Just one, okay. Rosalind can take that one.
The short answer is yes. Imposter syndrome for me is one of the pitfalls that many of us find ourselves, facing. I don't even call it a mistake. I call it a pitfall. And the difference for me is that it can keep you stuck if you do not understand what it does to you, your career, and your ability to build your brand. So for me, imposter syndrome, and there's a lot that has been written, said. I know Pauline also has a masterclass on the same, but for me, it's when you really underestimate your potential. And maybe you're focusing on perfection rather than progress. So I think for me, it's why am I feeling that way in a meeting? Maybe there's a meeting going on, there's a discussion, and you're feeling like maybe your answers or your responses are not good enough. Why? Why wouldn't your answers or responses be good enough? You have the experience, you've worked at the organization, you understand the industry, you understand the challenges in the category. So why are you underestimating your potential? And that is a crucial question that must be asked by the person who asked this question. You've got to understand what is it that is affecting you in terms of how you see yourself. But importantly, what do you need to do about it? How can you make practical steps to speak up or to show up? And I think there's a bit of introspection that's required, and also deciding that I'm going to be bold. What's the worst that can happen to me? If I stand up, put my hand, speak, what's the worst that could happen? You might even be surprised at just how people resonate with what you're saying. So let's not underestimate what we have within us. But also, another way to a practical approach to dealing with imposter syndrome is preparedness. Take time to prepare for your meetings. Take time to understand the content of the meeting, the agenda of the meeting. Take time to think about your competition, your category, the industry, what's happening globally, regionally, locally. So I think another way to overcome it is to be overly prepared. And then that way you feel that, yes, I can show up, speak up, because I have the content. So I hope that helps you, but that would be my response on that one.
Thank you. Thank you, Kaki. Sorry, that's another name for Rosalind. Yeah, so thank you, Rosalind, for that answer. And just to add on to that, for the person who asked that question, is that if it really persists and you know that every time you still have to over-prepare, or sometimes you're given a challenge and then actually the two indicators of imposter syndrome is over-preparation. Yeah, and then the other indicator is procrastination. So anytime you're given a task and you find that you fall in either of those two categories where you know you need to do this, but you keep pushing it until last minute, then you're now over-prepared, then you get the thing done, then those are signs of imposter syndrome. So we have a program called She Soars. It's actually a 6-month program Because with this program, we help you dig deep, demystify the narratives that you have had about yourself, yeah, and even the way you look at yourself. We help you internalize your successes so that you're able to articulate them, yeah. So there's a program for that, and if you will go to our website, which we will share in the, I'm sure all of you now know our website, but anyway, Masha, just share our website there. They can actually go and see about the program she solves. Thank you. Okay, Masha, next question. Next question.
Okay, Maureen, I've seen your thumbs up. It means that you're satisfied with the response. I think I'll give Eunice this one. How do you articulate your value when you're battling the urge to play small?
Play small. I think that we've already answered,
It's
Masha.
part of
We've
the
already
imposter
answered.
syndrome.
Yeah.
Okay. I hope NW you are listening to that. So how do you communicate your value as a self-employed person, Eunice?
Okay. So I think, no, Masha, I think that we've also addressed it.
Yeah.
Because Candy also answered that.
Okay.
So give us a different one.
All right. So does a personal brand evolve?
Okay. Eunice.
Eunice, okay. Yes, I think we mentioned that earlier when we were doing our intros of how we've evolved over time. And the involvement will need more intentionality as we mature into our personalities. And being intentional is going the extra mile to ensure that you know your value and where you want, what you want to be known. And remember, we talk about the legacy. When you are in a room, when you're out of that room, what do people say about you? So for me, that is what I would put out there. I think we've answered it in some way or another as we've been discussing, but it evolves and it needs a lot of you understanding what that is. Who are you? What is your purpose on earth? And when you're able to answer those questions, then you know how which areas now to amplify and which areas to maybe look for a coach or a trainer, someone who can be able to help you bring it out and then put it together. But it's a lot of work if you're very intentional about it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Work that can be done so that I also don't make you stop doing it. Because sometimes when you're second guessing yourself, you're like, oh, it's work. No, it's bit by bit. And evolution it took time. So you also evolve with time.
It's doable. Yes, it's not
Doable.
hard work, guys. It's just work that you need to be aware of, that you're going to be intentional about developing it and articulating it at various stages of your career. So for me, I would look at that. How does your brand evolve? I would say when you're starting out in your career, be known as that person who gets the work done. Just be the one who shows up to work on time. Yeah, the one who just does their work well and delivers and meets deadlines. In the beginning in your career, that's all that's required of you. As you progress with your career, then now you can start building your brand across the organization. So this is where now you have to start positioning yourself. All those task forces people hate going into because this is extra work. It's not in my JD. Those are the things that build brands. So you now start going for those committees, where you can now intermingle with other departments. They get to know you, you get to know them. So you see, these are all many other people who know you, and they're talking about how good you work well with others and how good you are in your work. So you see you're building your influence in the organization. So start volunteering in such committees, projects across the organization. Then now you start building your brand across the organization. Then you get now to senior level. And now senior level is where now you will. Remember, you're already seen as an expert. Yeah. And by the way, by the time you're getting to leadership, you're already an expert in your craft. But this is where now leadership comes in. So this is where influence has to, your influencing skills have to be and much higher. So how are you going to influence first your team, and how are you going to influence across the organization? So it's how you show up, I always say you can't be a top leader if you're not emulating the values that you expect your team to be behaving. So you can't tell people to come on time if you never get to work on time. Yeah, so you're going to be leading by example, but you'll be influencing by example. And now at this point, everyone is watching you. So anything that you have not cracked from the bottom, it's so visible at the top. Yeah. So that's what I would say. You're going to be leading now by example, even how you dress, all those things. People are watching, and you're actually influencing through that. Yeah. So I think that's how I would also put what Eunice was saying in a more practical way in the organization. Thank you. Nasha, the last question.
We have a final question here. I think some of it has been answered. I don't know if you want Caroline to take, Candy to take a stab at it. Gladys says, kindly speak to the value of credibility, trust, and consistency in building a brand.
Fantastic. First, I think I need to answer the one of imposter syndrome. I know I'm those marketing people, but I think it never ends. In fact, sometimes people see us who are able to do these things and you're like, these people, do they ever have imposter syndrome? And I think imposter syndrome is a sign of you're human, right? And honestly, the more senior you get, it doesn't change. It just morphs kidogo but changes. And I think for me, in my experience, at the core of it, first, most of the time when you're feeling imposter syndrome, it's because you're probably pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, which is not necessarily a bad thing. And it's the discomfort of growth. It's the discomfort of putting yourself out there. So for me, the way I look at it and process it usually is really like feel the fear, but do it anyway. It's really a conversation around fear and fear of failure. And you'll find most of the time the thing you had in your head is so much bigger and more scarier than actually what actually happens, even if it doesn't go according to plan. So my encouragement to anyone who feels like that, and that thing of playing small, that's what it is. You're afraid of what if it doesn't, what if it goes the way I'm worrying about that it's going to go. And most of the time when you do it, even if it doesn't go great, you'll just find there's something actually that went great. There's something you've learned. You're better off. Yeah. So don't worry if you're feeling, don't be like, when I stop feeling imposter syndrome, then I will. It happens to all of us. It's always there. Everybody has it. Trust and credibility is the fundamental of a brand, whether it's a corporate brand and a personal brand, because at the end of the day, when you think about what a brand is, it's really about functionally what you do and what you deliver, what value you give to people functionally, but more importantly, emotionally, right? So that people can actually feel. So when Pauline is saying, get the work done, at that point in your career, that's what is gonna get people to relax, that these things are done. I don't have to follow up. I don't have to do. So I think that is the fundamental, and how you build trust and credibility is what we talked about earlier, which is about being intentional. Yeah, at the end of the day, being intentional, being consistent, and being authentic. At the end of the day, again, and Eunice mentioned it when I say visibility, for me, when I was coming up in my career, there was a tinge of visibility which was inauthentic. It was show up, go play golf, and you hate golf, go and in the meeting, just say something, even if it doesn't make sense and nobody cares about what you're saying, say it. So I think, and that's what happens. At the end of the day, it's energy, right? And people can tell when you're being inauthentic. And then also that's what happens. If you're performing, what happens is then people just don't trust that energy. So at the end of the day, what you have to do is, that's why it starts with you, and going back to where we started, is be authentic and do the things, and then just be consistent with those things. Because when you're doing things authentically from genuinely who you are and what you are, your value system and what matters, you can then be consistent. And when you're consistent, eventually that's what people trust. And credibility is important because also you cannot be saying things, especially like us guys and me, like now I'm a consultant. It's credibility that gets me into the door, right? Because I can say I have done, right? You also have to have something tangible to show. When Rosalind talks about it's end of year, people are now actually asking you for, results. If you don't have something tangible to show that this is the effort I put and then this is the outcome I delivered, then you lose credibility. So you also have to balance and make sure that everything you're doing, you're being intentional about the outcome, because it is that outcome that gives you the credibility, and it's the consistency of delivering that outcome that actually eventually gets to the trust. So fundamental if you're going to grow your brand.
Fantastic. And thank you very much, because you've even answered one of my remaining questions. Yeah, so I think I'm going to ask now Eunice to answer for us. So mention for us practical tools that our audience can now start using to build their brands. Practical tools on the ground.
Okay. Thank you for that. Practical tools. The world has evolved, and I think we all see it evolving as we go. During the start of our careers, we did not have this kind of engagement. For instance, now this webinar and the speaking engagement. I think for me, speaking engagement was more of what we see on TV, and it would be the politicians and a bit of more of the politician, maybe just leaders, not normal, and I mean normal people who are at the level of our career then. So for me, some of the tools that now practically I can be able to use to amplify my personal brand are these opportunities where somebody tells you, I have a speaking engagement. Would you like to come and say something or speak? Or for me, that I'm doing also moderation and emceeing. And when I go to such forums, I am building on my brand basically by learning from those people, areas that I would not be in if I was not doing that engagement. So sometimes it's just getting out of your comfort zone and doing things that, if you asked me 10 years ago, would have been in a webinar like this, I'll tell you I'm too shy. But here I am, I've evolved to be able to do this. So getting to speaking engagement and webinars would be able to bring you and grow your personal brand. Now, the other one would be what also has helped most of us to, the ones who hide behind the keys where you don't want to be seen, is we've been given LinkedIn and many social media platforms that one can be able to also just bring out their thoughts and share out. So be very intentional in those areas and know what goes where. There's some topics that you will bring on LinkedIn, there's some that you'll put on your Instagram and TikTok. So research on your target audience and what you want to bring out on those platforms. So use those free, I would say free because we don't pay right now to use them as such, unless you want to really go deep into them. Use such tools to be able to keep you up there. So sharing insights will give you authority and keep your brand as top of mind. So whenever you engage your audience in those areas, they will constantly be seeing what you're doing, and that way now you're top of mind. Just like brands, when brands advertise or they talk or you see them on the billboards, it's top of mind. You're already seeing, I've seen that, I want to interact with that brand. I also mentioned earlier about networking. It's another place that we underestimate. And sometimes I remember when I started doing with networking, I used to wonder, so what am I going to say? And I was privileged to also have a coach that I spoke to. And what he told me that, okay, Eunice, you already have all these experiences that you have. What's the worst that can happen when you go to those networking engagements? And so be authentic. What Kendi has said, just go in there, just be you. Remove the titles, just be Eunice and talk to human beings, and you'll be surprised how when you get in as a human being, there's a lot that you can be able to get from people. So those are other tools or areas where I have worked on the last 10 years. And believe you me, sometimes I go to some rooms or when you're meeting other people and they say they already know you, and you're like, from where? You even get shocked. But it's because of these activities that I've been doing consistently. And now people get to know who you are. There's one thing that I need to work on. I'm a marketer and I've not done it. Building my portfolio online. So I know one of my friends challenged me that in the consultancy world, you need to also be able to go in and see what your portfolio is without you sending it to us. So I have a website, so I'm working on that. So those are other visible tools that you can be able to bring out if you're an entrepreneur. Ensure that you have a platform where people are able to view what you're doing. Have testimonials in there so that the target audience can be able to see they've worked with so-and-so, and these are the testimonials that you're getting from your field. I think most of those things can be able to help you grow your brand practically, basically.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for those practical tools that we can now use to start building our brand. And just to add on to that is for you to decide what is the one thing that you want to be known for. Pick a niche, guys. Pick a niche. You cannot be a master of 50 million things. You can't be knowledgeable about everything. So pick a niche and remain consistent. Pick a niche and remain consistent with it. Then you become an authority in that thing. Yeah. So I remember, like for me, when I got into consulting, which was 10 years ago, I picked a niche. And guess what? The target I gave myself when I was starting, I told myself, Pauline, by the time you are done with this, you need to be either the authority or to be mentioned amongst the authority in your area. Give yourself that target. Yeah, so that every time when you show up, by the way, there are many speaking. By the way, I tell people I have very many skills that I have, but there are many things I can do, but I do not do all of them. So when you show up in the market space, show up with the thing that you want to be known for. Are we together? So that you don't also confuse the market. So that if they have a need around careers, in whichever angle around careers, if my name is not mentioned, there's a problem with my brand. Are we together? Yeah. So give yourself a target like that. That if they are going to mention your area of expertise, your name needs to be there. Your name needs to be top, at least, even if you're not the top, be top 5. Yeah. So that's the challenge I give myself. And for me, I can tell you, I have remained consistent in the same area for the last 10 years without fail. Yeah. And guess what? Once you are able to do that, this is how you see all those awards you see us getting here is because of those things, that consistency. If you remain consistent in that thing, what happens is that you also gain mastery in it. And then guess what? Now you become a thought leader in that area. Yeah. So even when you write a book in that area, people will buy it because they have seen you being consistent in that area. Yeah. So that's how we build our brand. And then now people will start buying the brand. So I want us to conclude because our time is up. And I want us to finish off by answering this question. If nothing changes about, and I'm assuming it could be somebody in the audience who's watching us. If nothing changes about someone doing nothing about their personal brand, where do you think? What do you think might happen to them professionally in the next 2 years? Yeah. If somebody seated here right now, and you know yourselves, if they don't do anything about their brands, what do you think can happen to their professions? Their professions or their businesses in the next 2 years? Bearing in mind we're in the AI age, in the digital age. So I want to start off with Rosalind.
Wow. Great question. I think for me, if you do nothing, there is a cost and there are consequences. Number one, you become invisible. If the rest of us decide to start today, just small incremental steps to building our brand, and you do nothing, you become invisible. I think the second thing is you could easily remain on a treadmill. And that is a terrible place to be because there's motion, but not movement.
Mm-hmm.
What does that breed? A lot of frustration and feelings of being stuck. And you don't know why you're stuck. You can't understand why you're where you are, but you've been on a treadmill and you don't know how to get out of it. I think the other thing is around relevance. The world is changing. We've discussed that. We are constantly evolving, but you're stuck. You haven't moved. You've been on a treadmill. So you easily become irrelevant. And then I think one of the things that actively building your personal brand allows you to do is to build a network. So you then limit your opportunities to expand your network, be on a call like this, engage people you haven't engaged before, attend Pauline's programs, meet other women. You sharpen, iron sharpens iron, but you're not doing any of that. So yeah, you're just there. And then it begins to affect you internally. Suddenly your confidence, that self-doubt, and then, you ask imposter syndrome. We talked about it just being that, feelings of, just you're not good enough. Therefore, let me not speak up. Let me not show up. So it begins to eat at you internally, and you leave your reputation to chance. Remember, brand advocacy is crucial. So what will people then say about you in the room? You haven't shown up, you're invisible, you're irrelevant, you have no networks. What do you think? You become, again, as Pauline said, employee number 2002. And that's it. So the onus is on us to really just start in small steps, daily steps, but incremental steps. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Eunice, you'd like to go?
Yes, thank you. Just to add to what Rosalind has said, when you don't do anything in the next 2 years, there'll be missed opportunities. There'll be a lot of missed opportunities. There will be promotions or projects or some leadership roles that perhaps you could have stepped into because people don't know who you are. You are not visible. And Kendi talked of trust. So trust can only come out when you've shown what you're doing. So if there's nothing for one to see, then really they'll not talk about you, basically. So without a clear brand, you are going to be overlooked. Remember the person who said that they're being overlooked? It means that they really need to work on themselves. You'll be misrepresented if people don't know what you stand for. So you're giving guys an opportunity to say whatever they want to say about you. So colleagues, organization, they'll not know your strength. They'll not know who you are, basically. And for me, I think it's also very selfish because we join organization to add value. So if you're not adding value, surely, then why are you there? So we've talked about value. I think now we can be able to now connect the dots on how that presents itself as your personal brand in whichever space that you are in. Rosalind talked about being stuck. I don't think I need to add anything on that. But again, with that, you also now become reactive instead of being strategic. So you're always wondering, it happened, how? But I was here. You're just reacting to what has already happened. But when you're very strategic on what you want to achieve with your personal brand, it's very clear. And anyone who's dealing with you knows that this is the direction that you're taking. You're very intentional about your choices. You're very intentional about how people perceive you. So in that way, you're very strategic on how you're maneuvering, be it that you're business owner or you're self-employed. So yeah, I think those are what I can be able to add. There's a book that I'm reading right now called Die with Zero by Bill Perkins, and he talks of experience as a dividend. It's like the more you experience, the more dividend that you have, and that really shapes your brand. It shapes you in terms of your credibility and the opportunities that you can be able to get. So invest on your experience. And then experience is what we've talked about, including the mentorship and coaching that you did. It uncovers some of those things that you have within and you perhaps you didn't know. So yeah, jump out of your comfort zone and dare yourself, basically. That's what I can say that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Caroline.
Hey, Caroline. Who's that?
Mm.
I think I like this quote that says, when you stop growing, you start dying.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, if you do not start doing at least something when it comes to building your personal brand, you literally stop growing. In the world we're living, it's like those people who you'd be like, we're never going to, the internet is bad. You know, remember those guys? You know, it's one of those things. And so I think it's really about choosing not to die, right? And choosing not to die when it comes to your career. I think, however, it is uncomfortable, right? So it's also being comfortable with being uncomfortable and putting yourself out there and also baby steps. So I also don't think there's anything about saying, now let me go and then be this extreme thought leader on LinkedIn, just saying deep things every day. No. It's really about finding what's that small space you're comfortable with. And then you just start, even if it just starts by that thing we said earlier, draw out all your stakeholders and say, what's important to them? That's a step in the right direction. Maybe it's just about having a conversation like this. That's a step in the right direction. So as long as you're here, I think first you're already doing something about it. Good job. Well done to you. And then it's really about identifying what the baby steps are. But I think if you don't, you're probably your career will stagnate and eventually die.
Thank you very much. And we can give a big thank you, clap for our panelists. They've done a fantastic job. Thank you very much for your wise words and sharing your experiences. We are very grateful. And so for me, I just want to finish off this session with a few statistics for you to remember. So 99% of recruiters are all on LinkedIn. They all use LinkedIn. So that just tells you everybody who is hiring is on LinkedIn. They use LinkedIn. So if you're not on LinkedIn, just know you're not visible. The second thing I want to also tell you, the next statistic I want you to write down is 1.3 billion people across the world use LinkedIn. 1.3 billion on LinkedIn. But guess what? Only 10% post once a week. Only 10% of that 1.3 billion post once a week. And guess what? Only 1%. You know those people you people think are bragging about their life. Only 1% post 3 times a week. So if you want to differentiate yourself from the 1.3 billion, can you be the 1%? Can you imagine? Can you see how you get opportunities? 1% are the ones who just post 3 times a week. Right now, the algorithm for LinkedIn is if you just post 3 times a week, you're on the game. Are we together? You're in the game. You're starting to get noticed in the market. Your brand will be visible and people will start seeing you. And remember, the decision makers are on the same platform. So thank you very much. And I wish you all the best. We have a program for this. It's called Ascend. Also go to our website. If you really want to learn how to do it, please come attend Ascend. Then you'll become somebody else. We wish you all the best and thank you very much. So I hope we can have other sessions. The next month's webinar will be actually on AI and the future of careers. So buckle up for a better ride next month. Thank you very much. You see, now I am living off my media days now. Can you see? The 10 years, I am compensating for my 10 years. So thank you very much. And we can say goodbye now because it's 8:45. Thank you.